Hi, this is Amara, and I'm recording the last part of the slideshow of Secrets of the Yoniverse. Let's talk about the cervix. You could think of it as the gateway into this womb space. It looks like this, and it's tucked up at the end of the vagina. It's like the head of the uterus, and it's really an amazing thing. Actually, it's connected to many nerves: hypogastric nerve, pelvic nerve, vagus nerve. It's very innervated, and those nerves are very deep in your body. They're very deep in your brain, so they affect you on a very subconscious and physical level. So you want to approach it with kind of gentle sensitivity, for helping it open up to the deeper pleasures. Sometimes it likes to be stimulated, and other times, if she's not really warmed up enough, it'll be too intense and it doesn't want to get whammed into with a lot of hard thrusting until she's really warmed up. An orgasm that comes from the uterus or cervix is sometimes called a shower of stars, because it's very deep because of all those nerves. It's expansive, and it has a sense of lifting the sexual energy upward. So it affects the heart rate and the hormones and the brain way more than clitoral orgasms do. And you can stimulate it by using a dildo or riding on top of someone with a lingam, moving your hips back and forth, and moving your spine in a wave. You can also spiral your sacrum around the shaft, and those things will specifically stimulate the cervix. But that comes after the other orgasms. This is like later on in a long lovemaking, you might get a cervical orgasm when you're really warmed up. So many female people have difficulty with having an orgasm at all. In fact, having intercourse is not always what makes it happen. There's only 25 or 30% of women that have an orgasm through intercourse. And about 30% of women have trouble reaching orgasm at all. The missionary position is often more difficult. Sometimes if she's on top and then she can control the movements, that makes it easier. But yeah, it's a very common issue, and people who have trouble reaching orgasm tend to have, it actually has to do with your physiology. Like, they tend to have a smaller clitoris. This is my case. I have a really tiny clitoris, and it's far from my vagina. So I don't really get a lot of clitoral stimulation during intercourse. So it's like that's my primary sexual organ is the clitoris, and it's not getting a lot. So I can't ever really get over the top with that kind of stimulation. Also, the inner labia shape is influential. If you've got really tiny little inner labia, then the thrusting going through will not really pull very much on the clitoris. But if you have kind of larger labia that have more surface area, then as the thrusting goes through, it'll pull down on the clitoral head, on the hood, and stimulate the clitoris directly that way. And also, where your G-spot is located is influential, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Also, emotionally, you might just have trust and issues. You might have been abused or not treated respectfully, and you might just be tired or you're sick, and all of those things really affect your orgasmic capacity. Let's talk about some sacred spots inside female organs. So there's a lot of interesting spots, actually, and you can see here we've got the clitoris and the legs of the clitoris and the vestibular bulbs and the vaginal opening, and then here is the urethral sponge. So at the beginning of the urethral sponge, on the opening, that spot sometimes really turns women on. They really like that spot, some people. And also a spot right at the base of the vagina, the frenulum spot, which I don't have a dot on there, but it's right there. That can be really sensitive, and if you reach your finger in a little bit to the perineal spot, that can be really wonderful too. The G spot is integrated in with the urethral sponge, and we'll see more pictures of that in a moment. And then you have the deep spots that are really innervated with those deep nerves. There's the front spot, sometimes called anterior A spot or the epicenter spot, that's in front of the cervix. And there's a deep spot or posterior P spot on the back. Both of those have tons of nerve endings, but they're all about pressure, right? You're not about the skin so much. They're about feeling the pressure of the impact. And the uterus, like I said, around the cervix, that can be really erotic also. Yes, many, many spots, and they're fun to play with. I also find that there's one right on the back side of the G spot. If you go underneath and in under the bone, past the little lumpy area, that's the G spot. Tickle that spot, it's really wonderful. That's one of my favorites. There are reflexology zones in your sexual organs, just like there are in your hands and your feet, but it's more fun to stimulate them. And this is one reason why the Taoists say that sex is really good for your health, because you're stimulating all these points that reflex to your other organs in your body. So you can see the little chart here, the kidney energy, which is the primary sexual energy, it's related to the sexual energy, is in the whole front part of the vagina and the clitoris and the lips. And then a little bit further in, the liver, a little further in, spleen and pancreas, and then up at the top by the cervix, heart, and lungs. So according to the Taoists, the reflexology zones on the shaft of the penis are similar, and if it's inserted, then they line up. So they can exchange energy that way. So it's very interesting to massage inside the walls of the vagina. You know, many people just go in and out, but if you actually curl your fingers and massage the walls and kind of go around the clock massaging at different depths, you'll find that some spots will be tender and some will feel numb and some will feel really, really great. So you can do yoni mapping and find out what's going on inside the whole Yoniverse. There's also 3 rings of vaginal muscles. Where you talked about the external ring, you could go ahead and try to flex that right now. That is where you imagine that you have something very nice at the beginning of your vaginal opening, fingers or something that you want inside, and then you squeeze it. Try to squeeze it and pull it in with your external muscle. That's usually the one that's easiest to contact. And then relax, and you squeeze it and relax. And just do that a number of times. It's like a Kegel, but it's more specific because we're not just tightening everything. We're tightening only that ring of muscle. And then there's a central ring, and you can practice tightening that by imagining you have something inside and you're trying to squeeze it from the sides. Trying to squeeze it and put pressure on it. And then there's a ring at the very back, which is right by the cervix. And I can access that when I think about lifting up my uterus. I think about how it feels when I was bleeding, and I can kind of feel the muscles back there. That one's a little harder to get in touch with, but you can learn to do it. And you can learn to flex these in order, you know, or all at once, or top, bottom, middle. You can learn to do them all individually. The vagina is very muscular, and it's made to pull things in and push things out. And women learn to do all kinds of tricks with their vaginas, which we don't need to learn now. We just want to do this because it's fun and it's healthy. Let's talk about the goddess spot. So kidney breathing, let's do some of that. I'm going to stand up and we're going to do a little bit of kidney breathing because, as we talked about, the kidneys are directly related to the sexual energy. And I think I'm going to stop my screen share for a moment so you can see me. So put your hands on your kidneys with your fingers pointed down. Your kidneys are this is right there in the middle of your back. They're not that big, about the size of your ears, right under the bottom of your ribs there. Just put your hands on them and imagine you can inhale into your back and expand. Feel your back expand into your hands. So your hands get pushed back as you inhale, and they come back as you exhale. It's called back breathing. You're really focusing on stretching your back muscles, and the heat of your hands and also the magnetism of your hands is warming your kidneys and nourishing your kidneys. I'm sorry, I have a little bird right now outside my window, so that's the sound in case you're wondering. Inhale into your kidneys and imagine sending loving, affectionate energy to your kidneys. Your kidneys are there all the time, filtering your blood every moment, gallons of it, helping you. So send some love to your kidneys. And then we're going to just take our knuckles and we're going to rub the kidneys. We're going to polish them a bit and warm them up like that. And then we're going to just tap them a little bit. Tap them and get them stimulated. These are excellent activities to do when you are tired. Let's put our hands back there again. And you've been sitting a long time and you just feel really drained. You can get up and do a little kidney breathing, kidney stimulation. That'll really help. Take a deep breath. Make a sound. We're going to talk about the G-spot, which I like to call the goddess spot. Other people call it the Grafenberg spot, but Grafenberg didn't have one. I'd rather call it the goddess spot. So the G-spot is actually the female prostate. It evolves from the same tissue as the male prostate in the fetuses. It has very similar fluid content, hormones and serotonin. And this is kind of what it looks like. It's like a bunch of tiny little tubes and bundles. And this is the clitoris, the shaft of the clitoris, the legs of the clitoris. Down here's the perineal sponge, there's the bladder. So the G-spot's sort of wrapped around the urethra in the middle of the urethral sponge. And if you want to stimulate the G-spot, which is a very good idea, it's really yummy and arousing to stimulate the G-spot, you would reach in like this with your hand facing the ceiling, assuming they're on their back, and you would stroke, like curl your fingers, like a come here motion. That's one move you can do on it, and you can also go back and forth like a windshield wiper on it. You can circle it. It's really fun to just go in and explore it because you can usually feel it. It's a very distinct spot that's kind of lumpy and bumpy. Usually it's right inside the beginning of the vagina. These are 3 different types of G-spot placements. Now, this is backwards from the other one I was showing you, so the vulva would be out here on these pictures. And this is actually what it looks like, little anatomical drawing of it. Most of them are placed like this, just right inside the entrance of the vagina on the top. But some of them, maybe 5 or 10% of people, have the G-spot much further back. And you have to reach in to be able to find it. And then some people have a G-spot that's kind of shaped, just kind of spread out. It might be a bunch in the middle here and a little in the back and a little in the front. So depending on where your G-spot is, it will make a difference as to how you feel during intercourse and what positions feel good during intercourse. There's also a lot of emotions in the G-spot. It's known as a place that stores emotions and can release old emotions. I'm imagining because it's so innervated to those deep nerves that go to your deep base brain. And so when you're massaging the G-spot or having intercourse, it can bring up a lot of emotions. It can bring up feelings. You can suddenly become enraged or suddenly scared or suddenly really sad, or you can become ecstatic and blissful. And sometimes this is shocking to our lovers who are like, what did I do? I did something wrong. Eek. But it doesn't mean anything was wrong. What it means is she is trusting you enough to open and let those energies out, and that release of energy is going to be very healing. It's going to be very healing and clearing for the tissues and for the emotional body. So really just treat it as a sacred moment where this is finally able to move. It's finally able to heal. So women, female-bodied people, can ejaculate. And this has been known for thousands of years. It's been known in tantric teachings in India and in China. It's been known as a sacred fluid forever. It's called white moonflower medicine. And as you can see here in this somewhat unrealistic picture, he is licking her, and she is very neatly ejaculating down into this jar, which would not be happening, right? It'd be all over his face. But anyway, this is what was happening here, and they were collecting it to use it as medicine and use it in rituals. You can also see that his phallus is greatly over-exaggerated. But so the female prostate has about 40 glands and ducts. It's 3 times more than the male prostate has, and ejaculate mostly flows out of the urethra, just like men. Or if there's a block in the urethra, it can back up and flow back into the bladder and get mixed with urine, and then you pee it out afterwards. So if you smell your urine after you've had sex, it might smell different. It might have been changed by the ejaculate. And here's another view of the periurethral glands in the G-spot. And they generate one kind of Amrita fluid. There's actually 3 different kinds, which I'll talk about in a minute. And the quantity can be like a little bit, little dribble, like 1 teaspoon, or it can be huge, like a cup or more per ejaculation. It can just flood the bed. I'm sure you might have had that experience or know somebody has had that experience. And the fluid, it's actually highly potent. It's got all kinds of hormones and vitamin in it, just like semen does. And it has endorphins, serotonin, PSA, maybe estrogen. It's got tons of stuff, plus, other nutrients. So it's really good for you, and it's psychoactive. Do women always ejaculate? Some people think that women always ejaculate, but it's just such a little bit that you can't know that it happened. And then some people say, oh, women never ejaculate. That's just pee. That's not even really real. So they're still debating about whether women ejaculate or not. You can take that for what it is. I personally have experienced it, and I know it happens. So where does it all come from? The Taoists say that there are 3 gates and 3 waters. The 3 gates are the clitoris, the G-spot, and the uterus. So with clitoral stimulation on the first one, clitoral stimulation helps with lubrication, and it activates the Skene's glands in the urethral sponge, in the G-spot. So that kind of ejaculation comes out of the G-spot. But the G-spot's not that big, right? You're not going to get like a cup out of the G-spot. It's a little bit of ejaculate that comes out of there. And if you have an ejaculation like that and you keep going, or you work mostly with the G-spot a little deeper, and you stimulate that spot, then you can get an ejaculation that is very copious, and it actually comes out of the bladder. But it's not pee. It's clear. It doesn't have waste in it. It might have a little pee in it, maybe, but mostly it smells really different because it's been changed by this hormone called aldosterone. And it's more like spinal fluid than anything else when they analyze it. And then if you go on and you have a deeper orgasm and you get that deep uterine cervical stimulation and you have a cervical orgasm, there's an ejaculate that comes out of the cervix, which is creamy and thick and white. Now, I don't know how they managed to figure all that out, because with all the action down there, they must be getting all mixed together. However, this is what the Taoist theory is. So if you want to learn how to ejaculate, you can do that, actually. There's a great book called Female Ejaculation and the G-Spot. You can practice massaging the G-Spot in the way that I was talking about. And you start with slow rhythmic strokes until it opens up. You can get one of these kinds of wands or vibrators that's designed to curl and get up into that area and press on the G-spot. These are very nice to work with. Also, in women, ejaculation can happen separate from orgasm. I had a friend that could just like spread her legs and go, okay, I'm going to ejaculate. Squirt. That was fun. And it's good to strengthen the vaginal muscles with a jade egg. So jade eggs are these round eggs that are drilled out in the middle. You put a string through them, and then you do yoni push-ups with them. You pull them up and push them out. You do resistance by pulling on the string and pulling them up. There's a lot of exercises. I'm sure you've heard of it, and if you're interested in that, it's easy to find those resources. So let's take a moment and just put your hands on your yoni or your energetic yoni, and close your eyes and just generate a feeling of gratitude for this beautiful part of your body, this mysterious part of your body. And send a wave of affection. Send a wave of smiling, kind affection, thinking about how magical she is. All the fancy equipment there, and how she can bring forth new humans. That's kind of the strongest magic, right? Really appreciate her for all of the pleasure that you have had and will have. Let's send love to her. And then take a moment and imagine pulling in and up that sexual chi. Squeeze the vaginal muscles. Inhale. Pull the energy right up the center and out the top of the head. And just feed yourself with that chi. Feed yourself with your feminine creative power. Deep breath. Make a sound. Ah. This is a wonderful meditation to do as you're going to sleep at night. And here is my list of books that I found interesting and based a lot of this slideshow on. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you learned something about yonis. If you want to find me, my website is amarakaruna.com, and I also have a Patreon page for people who want to support my work on a monthly basis and get benefits and gifts and discounts and such. Patreon.com/amarakaruna. Thank you, everyone.